Another member of the club wrote this story. She was born in Golden in 1905, and this is what she wrote. Quote, "When I was a freshman, there was an upper class student who got pregnant. She got that way from washing the roomers' underwear." That was good enough for me and my friends, as we had no idea how babies came, and we weren't even interested anyway. One day, when my sister was 12 and I was 8, we came home to lunch to find a squealing red kid, my brother Ed, in a bright pink blanket. He was just there. My mother was in bed, but we knew better than to pursue the question. The stork had already flown the coop. My first encounter with death was also when I was in grade school. My grandparents lived about a half block from school. So when my grandfather died, we were summoned in great haste. We found him in bed with pennies over his eyes to keep them closed. His jaw was tied up with a bright red bandana handkerchief. Later, he was laid out in his Sunday best in the parlor with candles and people all around the casket, night and day, lest he should escape. Although he was not a churchgoer, he was buried from the Catholic Church with the casket rolled to the front of the church. In the middle of the service, my father, who could not stand the priest's condemnation to say that his father-in-law was going straight to hell, he motioned the mortician, Billy Woods, move the body from this church. The family followed behind, and the deceased was put in a black horse-drawn hearse and took the long ride to Mount Olivet Cemetery. There he was buried without benefit of clergy.
This member's grandfather was named Fred Beamer, and he had a vegetable farm on Clear Creek Valley. Many people remembered him driving house to house delivering vegetables. However, it was no ordinary vegetable wagon, because the horse that pulled the wagon talked, and especially to small children. Fred had great fun with his ventriloquism. And Fred's son equipped the wagon with a radio and speaker, which became Golden's first auto radio. Another member remembered Fred as a city Santa Claus. One Christmas, when her 3 children were down with the measles, he came by the house on Christmas Eve in a Santa outfit to see the children before he made his big appearance at the flagpole at 12th and Washington. Well, it was a bitter cold night, and so her husband gave Santa a little Christmas cheer. Evidently, other places he visited had also felt sorry for him. And she later learned that he toppled off his chair at Washington Avenue Performance and had to be taken home.
Another lady who was
wait a minute, Fred Beamer's Fred Beamer's granddaughter also remembers learning to swim at church's indoor pool, which, when she wrote this, was under Eaker's department store, which is now under the Buffalo Rose. And there was another member who arrived in Golden in 1939 that moved into a house on 44th Street near the area of the Railroad Museum. She looked out her west window, could see the hills and walk in the fields and gather wild raspberries, mushrooms, and wild asparagus. She remembered the beautiful panorama of trees along Clear Creek and the gorgeous colors in the fall. Of course, Coors industry now fills up this valley.
Another lady met her husband at a dance. She records she was married in 1913. Her husband was in charge of the horses that delivered Coors beer in Golden. She remembered at that time babies were born at home. She writes, Dr. D.E. Garvin delivered each one of my children at my home, and I stayed in bed 10 days after delivery. A nurse came to my house each day for the 10 days, and her total charge for 10 days was $25. Except for measles, whooping cough, chicken pox and colds, the children were healthy, and when they were ill, they were treated with home remedies such as hot lemonade. At the end of World War I, the automobile took over. Model Ts were arriving in Golden by the carloads, and nearly every family in Golden owned a car. She fondly remembers her, quote, "Our 1922 Ford sedan had fancy sheer curtains on the side windows." This car couldn't make it up some of the grades in Golden, so we would just back up and go up the street, even on 44th Avenue. In the 1920s, the Ku Klux Klan came to Golden. This was a national organization with many chapters throughout Colorado. Denver was the hub of activity, with thousands of loyal members, led by powerful politicians. The mayor of Denver was a prominent member of the club, and one member represented our state in Congress. The Denver members held their weekly meetings at the top of Castle Rock, right here in Golden. Their weekly parades started in Denver, drove through West Denver on Colfax, turned on the old Golden Road, and proceeded to Quail Street, where they ascended the mountain. At that time, my family lived in Whiteacres. My sister and I would hide in a ditch and watch hundreds of black open touring cars pass by our house. We could see the Klan members completely covered in white sheets, wearing very high-pointed hats with only slits where their eyes showed out. To witness this scene on a moonlight night was most frightening. My sister and I were scared to death, but somehow we couldn't resist this live drama that was going right before us down our street. Thousands of Klan members gathered at the top of Castle Rock around a huge lighted cross that could be seen for miles around. They solemnly pledged never to reveal their identity, and they held fast to this vow. Never did an outsider know of this affiliation. At these swearing-in ceremonies, several hundred of men from Golden were sworn in. These Goldenites were the businessmen from downtown Avenue. They were blue-collar workers, and they were hangers-on. Often the Golden group, completely covered in white sheets with only their eyes showing, marched in military formation from the Colorado School of Mine campus straight down Washington Avenue. They were this was in broad daylight, marching behind the Grand Wizard, appropriate dressed in his regalia. Large crowds along the route cheered wildly. They clapped their hands. They yelled. They were so proud of this group. The Klan was a powerful influence in Golden. They held political offices. They were members of the school board and members of all the local fraternal organizations. Theirs was a hate group, and their targets were the Jews, the Negroes, and the Catholics. There were no Jews in Golden, there were no Negroes, so the Catholics were the victims. Several of my Catholic friends would awaken at night to find a cross burning in their front yard. These were unpleasant times for all of us. The years of the Depression were difficult in Golden. With Prohibition starting in 1914, the Coors industries practically went out of business. Few people had steady jobs, and there was no welfare program. Everyone was poor, but we soldiered on, and we created a simple lifestyle, which was described by one of our members. She writes, "Cars were as much a part of our lives as they are now. Walking was mode of transportation. We walked to school, to the store, to church, and to the show at the gym, our local movie theater. Admission was 25 cents for adults and 15 cents for children. Delivery service was given by most grocery stores in town. A phone call to the store, if you had a phone, or a list brought to the store by one of the kids of the family in the morning would mean groceries would be delivered that afternoon. In those days, people seldom locked their doors, and law enforcement was casual. At night, a concerned citizen would merely tell the telephone operator, who knew everybody by name, of the problem. She would turn on a red light on the corner of 12th and Washington, and this would alert the night marshal. He would then call her up, find out what the problem was, and take care of it. She also recalls the night that, Coors Company was, as now, the main industry in Golden. During the days of Prohibition, some of their products were near beer, malted and sweet cream butter. I remember the night beer became legal, she wrote. The beer had been processed, and delivery trucks were lined up to leave the brewery at midnight. Our family lived on Ford Street at the time, and my room was on the second floor and in the front of the house. At a minute or two after midnight, after the Coors whistle had blown, the parade began. Trains were loaded to distribute beer throughout Colorado, and trucks were also loaded for local distribution. I can remember the trucks carrying the now legal beer. They began to rumble past. It seemed like a regular parade of trucks leading out of town. Rumor had it that some of the trucks were hijacked at the top of the mountain. These were thirsty people, and they'd waited too long for a beer. The years of the Depression. The years of the Depression were difficult. Very few people had a job. But then World War II came along. Young men and women enlisted in the armed services, and they served bravely in theaters all over the world. A list of those serving was painted on the south wall of what is now the Golden Grill. Frequently, a gold star was added. Delphian members recall, during World War II, there were shortages of tires, gasoline, sugar, butter, and meat. These were all rationed. We began to eat oleomargarine. It was white and came in a clear plastic bag with a small orange capsule. One kneaded the orange peel into the white substance inside the bag, and voila, instant butter. Often the bag broke, which made quite a spread. Soap was difficult to get, so I saved all grease and started to make soap myself. The rationing of shoes was not a particular hardship. When the war was over, the town celebrated for days. Those who served were welcomed home, and the building boom began. GIs attended the Colorado School of Mines, and young families came and they settled in.